Game week 1 is officially wrapped, and that's it. I've got a rank of 8 million for the first time in my entire history playing FPL. Where to go to from here? Well, today I am looking at the differentials for the first time this season to boost your rank. And last year, I had a very successful time normally at identifying really good players before they started peaking. Hopefully, I can do the same again this year. Because let's be honest, if you're like me, you need to pick me up. You need some players to come out of the mud and get you back into the game for game week 2. With that being said, smash a like on the video, share it with your mates. Leave me a comment on differentials that you like the look of, and if you're going to make a transfer this week. And lastly, if you haven't already smashed that subscribe button, please consider doing so. And with that being said, let's go. Differentials. This is what I love. These are my favorite videos I enjoy putting together to you every single week. I did it last year, and this is quite often where I actually go to with my own transfers. I love a differential play. Unless there is a player that I definitely want that isn't a differential, these are the guys I go to. This is how I made my rank last year. And let's be honest, there's a few things I need to think about. Already early doors, just from the 1 week. Now we've got 10 games of football, lots of information from all of them. Is it worth making transfers for 1 week punts, especially versus the weak teams? Now, based on what we saw between Tottenham and Burnley, and I do believe I think I could almost go down and bet my house on it, Burnley are going to finish last. I'm pretty confident in saying that. They look like the Southamptons, the Leicesters of last year. They are 100% going back down to the Championship. I feel sorry for Scott Parker. That team is just not equipped for Premier League football with the way it is. They are definitely a team to target. Now, last year, if you always targeted Leicester or Southampton, particularly from an attacking sense, it normally worked pretty well, unless you're Erling Haaland, who didn't really show up against Southampton. Teams of good fixture runs are something you also need to be aware of, because sometimes it's better to get a player that plays well for a considerable amount of weeks rather than just your 1 week punts. For that reason, we do have to look at Chelsea, Manchester City, Brentford, Aston Villa, Spurs, Bournemouth and Sunderland, all pretty high on the fixture ticker between now, from game week 2 pretty much to game week 7, which we'll have a look at in a very short space of time. Next, do you chase points that have already been had, or do you look and try and plan for points that potentially might be about to come? Now, last week, I picked a team, not because I thought it was the best ever Game Week 1 team. It was because of the fact that I had half an eye on this week, on the next week, on Game Week 4, Game Week 5, etc. That's what the idea was behind it. Whether it works out, we'll have to wait and see. But sometimes having an eye on not just this week can aid you in getting points longer term. So that needs to be really kept in mind. Then, Bournemouth, obviously, a lot of people overlooked them last week. I obviously had a Van Linson last week and had him on the bench in ready for this week, because now they've got Wolves, and Wolves already conceded 4 to Man City, and they didn't look overly good on the opening day either. So maybe lots of people slept on the Bournemouth assets. Maybe this is the week that you should be targeting to bring one of them in. We've already seen one of them rise in Semenyo, who's now risen from 7 mil to 7.1 mil. Lastly, as I said before, pick differentials that target the fixtures. It is the number one way of getting ahead in FPL, and it's a surefire way of getting the most points every single game week. So let's have a look at the updated fixture difficulty rating, which has now got rid of Game Week 1 because that has been and gone, and we can have a look at Game Weeks 2 to 7. As we can see there, Arsenal and Burnley don't really have very good runs of fixtures there. They do have nice 1 week punts though. So Arsenal have Leeds this week, Burnley have Sunderland, which is why a lot of people might have been looking to bench boost. But really, after we saw Burnley against Spurs, I don't know why you would ever want to bench boost that. Forest, as we can see there, fairly decent run of fixtures as well. Leeds obviously have that tough one, but then it sort of gets a bit easier for them. Aston Villa, Chelsea, as you can see there, it's a pretty nice run of fixtures for both of those clubs, even though in reality, both of them are pretty poor in Game Week 1. Hopefully we see an improvement in Game Week 2. Liverpool enter that hard stretch now, Newcastle and Arsenal away. Sunderland, they've got the Burnley fixture, the best fixture in the game. Maybe we target their assets. I'm still haven't seen enough on Tunnel to really recommend their asset. So as you can see, Bournemouth, no more red fixture on there. It is nice plain sailing there for that team and their assets. Crystal Palace, they got that Chelsea game out of the way. Hopefully they've still got a bit of a middling fixture run there. Man City, other than the Arsenal game, you can see why everyone loves them. Tottenham, after this week, also look really good on paper for the foreseeable future. Brentford were really bad, let's be honest, but they really should be okay. Everton, meh. West Ham, very similar to Everton. Didn't do much in game week 1. I think we've got to give them another game week. Wolves, obviously, it gets a little bit easier for them with that Man City game gone. And Newcastle, after the Liverpool game, does look all right. And Man United, even, without that Man City game in game week 4, they don't actually look all right between now in game weeks 2 and 7. Just stuff to keep in mind. It's always really interesting to get a little bit of that segment for the next 6 game weeks when you're looking at the fixtures. So, on to the goalkeepers. Trafford. He started for Man City in goal. That is the easiest way to get into the Man City defence. Now, if Edison, I don't know why Edison missed the game, but if he does happen to leave and Trafford becomes the number 1 and they don't sign Donnarumma, which is still a big if, which is why it's hard to really 100% recommend him, but 2.4% ownership for Trafford, 5 mil. He's going to start in front of Ortega. If he starts in front of Edison, they don't sign Donnarumma, that is a guaranteed transfer into my team. 5 million for a Man City goalkeeper. He already made 3 saves in that game. It's so much to love there. Only 0.56 expected goals conceded against Wolves as well. I mean, it's unbelievable. This could be the one City asset that you can guarantee every week outside of Erling Haaland and starting. If, as I said, it's a big if still. If they don't sign Donnarumma, he could definitely be the one. Then comes in Petrovic. The hard fixture is out of the way now. And look, he made 6 saves against Liverpool. And look, the XGC conceded by Bournemouth in that game was 2.21, which doesn't fill you with great hope. But they just played the best attack probably in the league at this moment in time from last season. For that reason, I think we can kind of put that game on the skew. If they've obviously signed a central defender, they should get better the more they play together. I would expect him to actually be really good value. Then we got Henderson. Ironically, I didn't expect him to keep a clean sheet against Chelsea, but he did. So he's off to a good start, unlike last year where it took him a while to get a clean sheet. But again, he looked, I mean, the expected goals conceded per 90 was actually 1.6, which he did well. He did well actually to not concede in that game based on that. But again, 5 mil. If we can just look past that Aston Villa and Liverpool game, the run of fixtures for Crystal Palace is actually really good. And then we've got Vicario. I wouldn't be buying him this week, but again, he does look like the starting goalkeeper for Spurs. Made 4 saves, kept a clean sheet, 0.94 expected goals conceded per 90, but they were playing Burnley, so you do have to take that into account. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes against Manchester City away this weekend. That's definitely going to be one to watch, but he could be a goalkeeper that's worth looking at moving forward. So on to the 4 defenders this week, and look, this is... I'd always enjoy pulling out the defenders. Now, I might have made a big mistake in my team. Instead of, I thought Collins might have been the one. Collins was the 5 million DC superhero I needed. In reality, I might have just got it horribly wrong, and I should have got Lacroix. Now, Lacroix ended up with 8 points. He got the clean sheet. He had 16 defensive contributions in that game against Chelsea, 1.2% ownership. No attacking threat in that game, by the way. Absolutely 0 in both categories. But he was just so good. Like, I knew that this guy was another one that was very similar to Collins, and that's why it was priced at 5 million. I might have made a mistake in my team. He, I think, is the one that, if I could go back and change, I should have conceded him. I just didn't, and I'm not sure why I didn't. But I just think I thought Collins would have more attacking potential. But what I saw on the weekend, Collins didn't really get near the DC contributions. Lacroix just sailed on past. Then we got Truffett, 4.5 million. I liked what I saw in that Liverpool game. He got down. He had 0.13 expected assists per 90 from that one game. He did look good. He even got 6 defensive contributions as well, which if that's your flavour. Again, a real low-owned differential, 0.8%. He's only going to get better the more games he plays at Bournemouth as well. So again, for that reason, now that Liverpool game's gone, I expect him to probably do something similar to what Kirkes did at Bournemouth last season. I could definitely see that. Now, the next two picks are going to be like, oh, you're a little bit rogue here. You've Dyson, especially after I've literally sat there and talked down about Mickey Van de Ven with his tight hamstrings. Reece James has tight hamstrings as well, but he played 78 minutes in this game. So he got pulled off, which I quite like. I like that with your wing backs that have attacking potential. Because quite often, the goals conceded by those bigger teams are ones conceded late on in games when they've already been subbed off. So for that reason, I quite like the James pick. One of my mates had him versus me in the head-to-head leg as well, and that might have influenced my thinking this week. But 5.7% ownership. He had 0.22 expected assists per 90 based on the number that he got in the 78 minutes he was on. He even got 8.08 defensive contributions per 90 based on the time that he was on the field as well. So again, he could be, if he can stay fit, that is the quandary with Reece James. Can he stay fit? If he can, he could be an unbelievably good pick. And I can see a lot of love there. And with West Ham this week, there's almost an easy straightaway reward there as well. It's a bit like Truffett with Wolves. Then we got on to Euro. Now, I did give him a shout out in the videos leading up to Game Week 1. And this dude also got the DC points required for the extra 2. He ended up with 4 points for the game, which, all things considered, was a lot better. It was actually more points than my entire defense got in my own team. So there we go. Maybe I should have got Euro and played him. I thought he'd be a pretty good DC monster, and it turns out that he apparently is a bit of a superhero. He just looked good. He looked good for Man United. Man United were really troubled by Arsenal, and Arsenal are forecast to be in the top 4. So that's all we need to know about that. He looked assured. I think he's going to play every single minute that he is fit for this season. He just looks good. You can see what Amrin's trying to do with them, and I think that he's going to be good. If he can add some attacking potential to his game, it's a matter of time before Man United start keeping clean sheets. If they get a new goalkeeper, it will definitely aid the cause as well. But Euro, as a defender, I think he's going to be a great pick, and he's great value at 4.5 mil. He's got the DC points in him, probably more so than Dorgu, who probably has more of the attacking potential. It is a muchness, but I thought I'd just give Euro a shout out this week. So on to the midfielders this week, and it's hard to believe that Morgan Rogers is only 9.7% owned. So he was an easy decision to bring in at number 1 here for the midfielder differentials for this video. He's obviously got the Brentford fixture, and based on what we saw from Brentford on the weekend, you would think that Morgan Rogers, hopefully Aston Villa got the rust out of the system, and he's going to be much better because look, on the weekend against Newcastle, him and Aston Villa in general offered absolutely crickets. But you would expect that to improve this week. He'll be over 10% owned if he gets going. And I expect him to do something against Brentford rather than just get the clean sheet point. And then look at the run of fixtures. There's no red in there. It's all fairly smooth sailing. He's got 2 promoted teams in the next 6 as well. You would expect Morgan Rogers to probably pay you back in spades there. Then I've got Matheus Cunha. Now, Cunha was amazing in that Arsenal game, racking up 0.4 XG himself and 0.05 assists. He just looked amazing. Every time he got the ball, he looked like he was going to do something against that Arsenal team. I think he's definitely going to start getting returns. I wouldn't even be surprised if Man United put a few goals past Fulham. Fulham's defence is nowhere near as good as Arsenal's, and I think it was only because of the fact that Arsenal's defence is so good that Man United did not score on the weekend. For that reason, I think he's probably better than Mbeumo at the moment, based on what I saw on the weekend. I mean, you could make a case for both of them, but Mbeumo's over 10% owned, so he can't make the video anyway because you have to be under 10% owned to make the differentials video, unless you're in the one make punt section. Then we got Odegaard. Now, I picked Odegaard because of the fact that they do have leads this week, but I just liked what I saw against Man United. I don't know how he got 14 DC points against Man United. I would never have predicted, no AI algorithm would have predicted that either. But I wouldn't have predicted that. And I just think he could be a really good shout, especially with Leeds this week. Instant reward. He's guaranteed to pretty much start with Rice and Zubimendi in that midfield 3 with Saka up the other side, someone in the middle, and then probably someone on the left. And look, the stats were pretty good. Considering Arsenal created next to nothing, 0.09 expected assists, 0.29 expected assists, 0.09 expected goals. The 1 clean sheet and the 14 DC contributions was just the icing on the cake for anyone that went there. Again, you probably want a little bit more, but I think there is some reward there. And I did like what I saw from Martin Odegaard on the weekend in that game. Then we got Damsgaard. Now, He didn't play on the weekend due to the birth of a child, I believe. I believe I was told that anyway, which is highly annoying because he was in my draft team and he didn't play. And I think he was sorely missed by Brentford in that game against Nottingham Forest as well. I do expect him to run the show. And I think Brentford will be a significantly better team going forward and defensively with him back in the lineup. So for that reason, I can't talk about how he went on the weekend, but based on what I saw last season and in the couple of games in pre-season, Damsgaard should be a really good pick at 6 mil, and he's owned by 1% of the competition. Brentford's run is pretty good, and I do think they're going to score goals, and they're definitely going to improve on what we saw on the weekend, I believe. So on to the forwards, and we have Strand Larsen. I've just got him in a snippet in front of Evanlinson, or Evanilson, however you want to say it. I think these two are the two ones, the forwards that are definitely going to be looked at by people wanting to move off João Pedro that don't have the funds to go up to Chris Wood because he's already risen in price. 4.7% Strand Larsen. Now, he did get a little bit of a knock on the ankle, but when you're racking up 0.42 expected goals per 90 against Man City, I quite like that. That's good. That is a team that you would expect them to struggle against, or him to struggle against. A much easier fixture this week with Bournemouth. Then it's Everton, then it's Leeds in like the next 4. The only difficult fixture really in there is the Everton game. If he keeps on back in what we saw up against City, he's going to score goals. And he could be an absolute steal at 6.5 mil. Then we got my boy that sat on the bench against Liverpool because of the fact that I wanted him for this week. I think he's going to be great. It's going to be a matter of did I get it right and pick the right one, or they're both going to return. It's not going to make a difference. I'm hoping that Evanilson returns because that's why I bought him in the first place. Otherwise, I would have been better off just spending up money somewhere else and getting a worse bench option. But I think he's going to be good. Now, he did rack up 0.29 expected goals against Liverpool in that game. Again, he started with one of the toughest fixtures, in fact, probably the toughest fixture, Liverpool at Anfield. So you would expect that number to go up against easier teams, and Wolves are definitely an easier team. So again, I'm hoping that I've read this one right and he does do well. He's a great shout this week, and I think he'll be great. Then we got Thiago. We've learned that he's on penalties. He took the penalty that Brentford won. He got his goal. He's already up and running for the season, which is good news for him and good news for Brentford because they're going to need someone scoring the goals for them. And at 0.9% ownership, it's unbelievably low ownership. He could be really good, especially if they start getting a bit of rhythm and flow. With Damsgaard back in that team, I expect more chances to be created for Thiago moving forward for Brentford as well. And remember last season, they were exceptionally good at home. So hopefully we see something similar if you're going in that direction this week. And then in number 4 spot is my draft hero, the Pigeon, Richarlison. I don't see Dominic Solanke getting in that team if Richarlison's in this kind of form. I think he's a better player than Dominic Solanke. He was playing Burnley, so that is the only quandary I've got here. He was playing Burnley, but he made the most of it. He got 2 goals in his 78 minutes on the field, which gave him a 0.99 XG per 90 and a 0.01 XA per 90. Ironically, his defensive contributions weren't too bad for a forward either, 6.34, but in reality, that's nowhere near the 12 that they need in order to get those points. But he could be great. Other than the Man City game this week, which I wouldn't feel overly comfortable playing him in, the next 5 weeks after that are fantastic for Spurs assets. And for that reason, there is a world where you could bring the Pigeon in because I really do believe he's better than Dominic Solanke. And I can't see a world where Dominic Solanke pushes him out of the lineup, especially when he scored a brace on the opening day. So now we're on to my favourite section. Now these are my best 1 week punts for the week. And let me know what your best 1 week punts are for each position. I haven't done a goalkeeper because no one's taking a punt on a goalkeeper for 1 week. Let's be honest. But there is a world where we can do a 1 week punt on a defender, a midfielder, and a forward. So that's what I'm going to do every single week is pick the best players I think in each one. And I'm normally going to do 2 midfielders because that is the one where there is quite a degree of players that you can pick from on any given week. In defence, so now I did look at Ballard from Sunderland. I do appreciate that people maybe that was a really good 1 week punt, but I think that is definitely a case of points chasing. So for that reason, I'm not going anywhere there. Kukurea, though, in his first game of the season, 0.11 expected goals, 0.1 expected assists. A 15-pointer is incoming for Kukurea. Dudu Raya, the D-Unit's boy, pull some hair. He's going to be sitting there. I'm telling you, he's going to get a very big score very early in the season. It could well be against West Ham this week. It wouldn't surprise me if I'm being brutally honest. He did take up some amazing positions in that game against Crystal Palace. Then in the midfield, it is first off Saka. This is one of the two players I've actually got in my own team, and probably one which the two that I'm actively thinking about with captaincy this week. He should be a great captain. Now, ironically, his numbers were quite down against Man United because Arsenal didn't really do much attacking. Outside of the goal they got, which was literally gifted to them by the goalkeeper of Man United, they didn't do a hell of a lot. But Saka, I think, is going to rip it up this week. I don't know why. I've just got a feeling. I brought him into the team before the start of the season for this week to captain him. At the moment, the captaincy is on him as well. 0.15 expected goals per 90 in that game against Man United. 0.09 assists. I think he's just going to be good. I don't know why. I just got a sneaky suspicion he is the best midfielder owned this week. Then I've got Semenyo coming in at number 2. Now, I know this. Some people say this is a case of points chasing, but he scored twice against Liverpool away at Anfield. And now he goes home to the South Coast and he's got Wolves. And Wolves have already conceded 4 goals. There is no reason to think that he can't do something similar here and continue on his merry way. If he can do it against Liverpool, he can definitely do it against Wolves. So for that reason, he comes in as the second best punt in the midfield this week for my liking. And then in the forward line, I did think about Haaland because Haaland's obviously started the season off really well. But let's be honest, that Brentford defence on the weekend was abysmal. For that reason, I am going with Ollie Watkins. I think that potentially he is the best forward line punt this weekend. The stats weren't good against Newcastle, but Brentford are nowhere near as good as Newcastle. But maybe they will be at home. We'll just have to wait and see. But I like him for the 1 week punt in the forward line this week. So that's the end of my Game Week 2 differentials to boost your Game Week rank. I've also added a new section this year because obviously there's no assistant managers this year, much to the disappointment of myself and many people in the community, so I can't cover them in this video. But I am going to be doing the best 1 week punts, which are regardless of ownership, but the other parts of this video will always be on the players 10% and under that I think are likely to pop off in any given week based on the fixtures, based on the form, based on what I see when I'm watching the football. If you've enjoyed that, please smash a like on the video, leave us a comment, share it with your mates, and if you haven't already, smash the subscribe button. I'll be back with my transfer tips tomorrow, team selection Thursday, and the late mail on Friday. I've been the D-Unit. Thanks for watching.